Welcome to the Love, Law, and Life Makeover podcast, a go-to for hope, faith, and joy in changing your life. I'm Neil Presley Cox, lawyer, speaker, and author of Hope Lines. I have an easy-to-find website, neilpresleycox.com. You can't miss it. And a nice welcome for my presenter and co-host, Kelsey Gibbs.
Thank you so much, Neil. I really appreciate you. Today's chapter is anxiety, young adults, and overwhelming stress. Neil, can you just start by doing an overview of the chapter?
Anxiety, stress, anxiety, you can interchange the words, but they're a plague on our modern society, and young people are suffering from anxiety more than I've ever seen in my life. I'm 60 years old. I've been a lawyer for 30 years, and I've never seen anything like the levels of anxiety people are going through. And as the anxiety and stress go through the stratosphere, the potency of the substances that people use to deal with their anxiety have gone through the stratosphere. So my story about anxiety, it deals with a young lady who has a lot of it, of course, and it explains a little bit about the workings of her mind and what paralysis does to her, what the anxiety does in terms of dealing with her personal relationships, her parents, and her fears and unwillingness to take steps in life because of that sense of paralysis, which I think is keeping people in their homes on their devices as opposed to getting out and socializing, being around other people with confidence. So of all my stories, I think it's potentially the one that is most broadly applicable to people, including myself, of course.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's a lot of people out there that cannot, it's almost like if they call it introversion right now. I feel like a lot of anxiety is masked by something called introversion, which I do believe there are true introverts out there. But like just even speaking to people in everyday life, they're like, you know what, I was gonna go out, I was gonna meet people, I was gonna do this, but then XYZ happened, and emotionally I just couldn't do it anymore. And it's almost like instead of saying, okay, I'm feeling emotional right now, something outside of this event that I was gonna go to in person, I'm no longer going to do what would be healthy for me, what would be showing love for myself, of needing to be around community and other humans. I'm going to stay inside and not do those things.
Right. That you just nailed something, Kelsey. When I don't want to do something, it's not a normal reaction for me to say, well, I'm terrible at that, or I'm afraid to do that because I don't think I think it's going to make me look stupid. That happens to me just as often as it does to anyone. But the normal reaction would be just to say something like, well, I just don't want to do that, or I'm too busy, as opposed to I'm afraid. I'm an attorney. Do I want to say to somebody I'm afraid? It's not the normal reaction for us to admit those true feelings of how are we going to look if we do this? I'm not comfortable, and it's going to probably produce some chuckles, and people are like, geez, this guy is 60 years old and he doesn't know how to do that. I'm not good with tools. So, I don't want to start picking up a tool in front of some carpenters because they're going to laugh at me. So I shy away from that. So I think you nailed it. We don't want to admit that we are experiencing stress. It's not an easy thing to admit, what society might describe as a shortcoming. So we mask it. So I mask it.
And it's really refreshing that you say that, because I feel like a lot of people think that, like, oh, if I was smart enough or if I was successful enough, I wouldn't have these feelings. And that's just not true, right? That's not true at all.
Yeah, I heard an attorney saying that they initially, or the young attorneys, got anxiety about going to court, but you get over that as an attorney, and if you get to be an experienced attorney, been to court a lot, the anxiety about going to court goes away. And I thought, Well, maybe I'm unusual, but I don't think this lawyer that said that could be more wrong. I still have anxiety about going to court. Now, there are times when I know that it's just not going to be a very stressful process, and so I don't. But many times I'm expecting to have an adversary, another lawyer, and sometimes that can be difficult and they can be fired up just as I'm fired up, and I don't know what the court's going to do. I'm worried about my client. So you doggone right, I have anxiety. I think it's impossible not to care and then not have anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I loved in the practical application of this, right? Because the whole story is about the, this girl who's she has so much anxiety. And actually, if you look at it from a bird's eye view, like it's nothing crazy. Like all of this stress and anxiety that she has is literally internal. Like her parents are like, "Hey, you have a deadline. You either need to go to college or start paying rent. Like you're going to grow up." Her anxiety is all about not being a child anymore. Is
Yeah.
that's
And
all it is. Like,
stepping out and dealing with things that are stressful and dealing with people and conflicts sometimes in the workplace or in the college world, anywhere, you have
mhm.
this worry that maybe you're not even fully aware of, that there's going to be some conflict with people and perhaps some criticism.
And
And
I
so
think
we don't want those things.
exactly, exactly. And what's so interesting is it's what because one of the practical applications is, do things that make you feel good about yourself. And scrolling on your phone is not a way to feel good about yourself,
No,
right?
it isn't.
Staying in your house and not going out to meet other people, or just being a recluse, that's not something that's going to make you feel good about yourself. So even though
Right.
it's uncomfortable, right? Like doing something that like that's just like that. I love that. When I saw it, I was like, you're right. Because
That's right. Scrolling on our phone does not make us more comfortable, in my belief and experience. I think that we have this subconscious, it's kind of down here, but it's controlling a lot of the emotions. And I think that our smartphone viewing preys into some of the negative attributes that are welling around in our subconscious mind. And those would include comparing ourselves with others and competing with others. So we have these compares and contrasts, and we usually go to the negative because other people are posting, fake perfect happiness. So subconsciously we go to the negative. We may not even be aware of it. But I see people that, are going to Mexico and Italy and all these fun places. I'm not going. And sometimes it wells up that I'm frustrated by that. I don't get to, and I don't get
mhm.
to have that life, or I don't look as good as this, or this person is getting more likes, they're getting more attention, they're getting more, and I'm getting less. And so those are subconscious things that sometimes well up, but they make us feel lousy over time. And so, there's a theme running through my book, and that is that there is no magic bullet for any problem. There's
Right.
no pill you can take that will make anxiety just disappear, and suddenly your life is grand and glorious and you're not stressed. And there's no quick solution to addiction, and there's no quick solution to having a breakup and trying to co-parent. It's a series of steps. So I don't offer easy answers and solutions that are going to just make things go away. But there is something that can make you feel relaxed about trying to make your life better, and that is the 5% rule. You don't have to tackle everything at once. You could just take a tiny little piece of something and say, today I promise myself I'll do something small that isn't overwhelming, that I know I can do, but it is a step in a direction that I know I really should be going in. Just one small thing. And then tomorrow, maybe you can do that plus one more little small thing. And eventually you can work yourself up into something. And you can also realize that none of these problems are overwhelming. They're not going to destroy us. They're just going to linger, and we're going to get to a point where we really need to deal with it. So it can take down your anxiety, the 5% rule, and doing small things. It can take it down enough to do the next thing. And so there's a series of suggestions in the application section of anxiety. And I think if you hit stress and anxiety and even mental health, some people call anxiety a mental health problem. I don't necessarily, although for a lot of people it reaches to that level. But you can get professional help and spiritual help. And I think if you pursue both at the same time, then you have that chance of your life rocketing upward.
Yeah, agree. Well, and I loved the you said your personality can be measured by the five people closest to you. You want to expand on that?
Well, I think that we tend to look for friends and look for people in our lives based on our initial thing is comfort. If we start to talk to somebody and we feel really comfortable and they present no threats to our psyche, then that person seems attractive. Or if they have something we want badly, and usually it's something on the surface, at least initially, whether it's physical attractiveness or somebody that smokes the same amount of marijuana that you do, and that you're going to do that the same day and time and feel very comfortable with that person doing it. And they don't present threats to us that they're going to create conflict or fight with us. So perhaps there's somebody else who isn't going to really challenge us because they're not going to create conflict. And so those kinds of people may feel safe and comfortable, especially in the beginning, but they don't necessarily represent people with whom we can grow together, or that if the chips are down, will tell us an uncomfortable truth that will help us in our life. Because I need somebody that's going to tell me, you're on the wrong path, me. I don't care if you've been a lawyer 30 years. You're on the wrong path. I like you, I love you, but you're wrong about this. And that presents conflict to them to be able to say that, and conflict for me to hear it. But boy, I like to have a friend like that. And so I think initially we choose friends that don't necessarily have the ability to say that because they're non-conflict and we're non-conflict. And so you want friends and people in your life that are emotionally healthy and maybe on a life growth pattern, and have good character, emotional love, good character, trying to help others, trying to lift people as opposed to harm them. If you can be around people like that, it'll lift you like a tide coming in.
Yeah, I love that analogy so much. And it feels so much better than the idea of like, one person on their lonely little island, right?
Yeah, it's the things we can't see right at this moment with our eyes. They're actually going to help us. A nice breeze comes in and we can't see it, but we feel it and it soothes us.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get lifted by taking these little steps. And then after a little while, suddenly we realize we've been lifted up.
Well, in that 5% rule, that compounds so fast.
Compound interest in life.
Mm-hmm. And then when you add extra people to it that are also in that doing that 5% rule, I mean, that's like you just like what you said, that whole wave to lift you up because that's essentially what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
beautiful.
And when I talk to people as a lawyer, I actually consciously and maybe even subconsciously try to gauge how much anxiety they have, because a lot of times when I'm talking to somebody, the first order of business before I can even reach them on anything much is to take down their stress level, because
Mm.
they're so stressed that their mind is kind of racing, and they're well, who's this guy and can he help me, and I don't like this and I hope he doesn't talk about this. And that racing mind and elevated heart rate and just that tension has to be addressed before we can get to the meat and heart of any kind of problem as an attorney.
I've seen you do that. I've witnessed that in person. Yeah, you're very good at that.
So I try to share love first, emotional love, so that I can let them know that, I actively care as a human being. And in the hopes that that will take their stress level down some, and then communication can then go forward, and they can use their logical part of their mind to take in some of the advice I'm prepared to give them.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's
Love
almost like,
first,
yeah,
logic second.
where you're meeting them where they're at and then bringing them up to where they need to be.
That's why it's love, law, and life makeovers. Love first.
Yes. I love it. I love it.
Very important chapter in Hope Lines. It's the one I tell people about the most.
Yeah, especially with I mean, honestly, anxiety is a trending topic and it has been for a while. Like, a lot of people they have anxiety, and it's so interesting because I feel like it took me a long time to decide to kind of admit it personally. Like I want to be like, no, like that doesn't bother me, whatever. But once I got to the point where I was like, no, I actually do have anxiety. And I've had people tell me, you don't have anxiety. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm like, I really don't want to go talk to these people I don't know, but I know I need human interaction. So I'm going to go do that. But no, it does not feel good walking up to a stranger for me. I've had a lot of, I can fake it, because I tapped into the thing, fake it till you make it when I was a teenager, right? So I, developed that skill. So it seems really natural, but I still I met a really neat group last night, and I had to force myself to go speak to these people they turned out to be amazing. And it got easier, right? After I talked to the first couple people, then it was like so much easier to talk to everybody else. But it literally like I almost chickened out. I almost said, you know what, no, I'm coming to this event. I don't know anyone. I'm just gonna chill. If somebody talks to me, great. But otherwise, I'm just gonna sit in the back and kind of just observe. I'm just gonna observe, And then then I went and talked to one person, and I was like, okay. Then they introduced me to their girlfriend, and I started talking to her, and I ended up talking to everybody, or most everybody at the party, and it was fine. So you
You
don't
did
know.
wonderful is what you did. You did great. You felt the fear and did it anyway.
Did it anyways.
That's
Exactly.
wonderful. In recovery, we call it the gift of desperation. You get to the point in your life where you think, geez, if I continue to just let these opportunities float by and not, go talk to people and go become part of life, and it'll be another week of being at home and just feeling yucky. And so you get so desperate that you're like, I'm going to just, fear or not, I'm going to go do this.
Yes.
The
Yeah,
gift
and
of desperation.
and to act like you're above the whole anxiety, if you find yourself you're not doing certain things, it's okay to admit I have anxiety and I'm not going to let it ruin my life or
That's
slow me
right.
down, or I'm not
That's
going to do
right.
something because I don't feel good doing it. I'm going to do it even if it doesn't feel good, I'm going to do it because I know it's good for me. And
Yeah.
that's going back to that. I love that so much. That really got me. Um, and at the very end where you write, climbers reach a mountaintop only after stages of preparation and ascending. Give it time. Like that's it. That's the game.
That's why they have Camp 1, Camp 2, Camp 3, and Camp 4 on Mount Everest before you even attempt to get to the top.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Oh man. I feel like we covered quite a bit on this episode, Neil. Is there anything else you wanna add or touch on?
Well, just that people in the mental health field have always said there's a stigma about being on medication for anxiety or depression. And I think it's time for us to discard even the idea of a stigma, because I think it's unusual to find somebody that isn't on anxiety or depression medication in this very stressful society of ours.
Hmm,
Very common.
so common. Well, thank you so much. This is Love, Law, and Life Makeover podcast, and come see us next time.
Bye.